My name is Jonathan Sigler. Most people call me Boots, and I am a filmmaker from Covington, Louisiana. I actually did a short film with Brian and TJ, so I'm super, super excited to be with these guys on their podcast. I'm just really happy to be on the NOLA Film Scene, man. It's been a long time coming.
Welcome to the NOLA Film Scene with TJ Plaideau.
I'm TJ.
And as always, I'm Plaideau.
Boots, thanks so much for joining us. We're happy to have you today.
Welcome, Boots.
Good to be here with you guys, man. So I'm excited. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be fun.
We've got you now.
So as Boots said, we worked together. We did a 48-hour film project, was the first project we worked on. And Boots was our DP, and he did an incredible job. And we very quickly turned around. It seemed like only a couple weeks later, it might have been a little bit longer. We did the Abita Springs Film Festival, which is the 7 and 7. We had 7 days to make the film. And again, he crushed it. He did the filming, he did the editing. And because it was a film fest and it was just kind of a rush to get everything done, it was kind of all hands on deck. We all shared some of those responsibilities.
And we came out victorious. I have to let everyone know that we did win. We got nominated for, I think, 11 awards, and we won 4 of them.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. So I think I'm really proud of that. It was like 2. That's right. Yeah. And then the 48-hour ones, you guys both got nominated for that too, right?
Right. Correct.
Yeah. So
both lost to that guy, Matt, or whatever his name was. No, anyway. But on the 7 and 7, you won for best editing, correct?
Yeah. Editor.
Editor. Which is
editing.
I
same
can
thing.
be forgiven for that.
That's right. Of course.
We got best picture. I got best actor, and was the 4th best script.
I think he won best script. He won best screenplay
director.
And best director. He won 2, and then you won 1, and then I won best editing.
Gotcha.
Right.
Cool.
But you were nominated for, in addition to best editing, you were nominated for something else.
I guess I was nominated for best DP. So just those 2.
We'll call it best cinematography. And if we're wrong, folks, we apologize.
That's right.
We can talk about that later, because it was fantastic cinematography.
I appreciate it.
It was a Western. Yeah. We went from The Office in the 48-hour film to Out West in the 7 and 7. And that was incredible. All of us, Matt, which you might have seen, we might have met on this podcast. He writes phenomenally under pressure, and he has that concise story. Boots is cinematography. He brings the equipment, the know-how, and your editing. I was there when we were doing the 7 and 7 because we all met at a coffee shop. And I've said it before, it was like watching Beethoven on a piano. Your hands fly. I'm like,
they do fly though. Yeah.
And so, I've got a pretty good descriptor for that. Anybody that's ever edited before, if you're editing content and you do the speed ramp effect where you're kind of doing a time lapse and it starts off slow and then it speeds up, like somebody's driving, for instance, and it kind of speed ramps it to the next scene. That's what it looked like watching you edit. It looked like you were in speed ramp mode when you were cruising.
Yeah, man. It was funny because I told Matt on the 48-hour one, he was like, you don't have to edit it. He's trying to get me on board. And I was like, oh, perfect, dude. I really don't think I'm that great of an editor, to be honest, just because of the creativity wise part of it. I think I can obviously put things together quickly, but just to have the actual eye for everything, the sound effects, all that kind of stuff. And he's like, I'm trying to find someone. Do you know anyone? I was like, no, I don't. He said, well, how much do you edit? I was like, I edit every single day. And he's like, every day you edit? I was like, yeah, dude, absolutely. And so he's like, so you think you can do it? And I was like, yeah, I can probably. And then once we had someone that didn't work out, I was like, dude, I'm just knock this out real quick. And it helps whenever you guys have a team to kind of bake in the audio to the clips and everything like that. But yeah. I think the biggest thing is, I listen to Team Deacon's podcast. It's like Roger Deakins, and he interviews a lot of other filmmakers, and they talk a little bit about the one camera, doing whole films with one cameras. And because a lot of times people in their head, when you think of a short film or anything like that, you think that, oh, they must have 3 or 4 cameras. And maybe for action scenes, a lot of people do. But for instance, there's been a lot of movies like All Quiet on the Western Front, 1917, both Oscar-winning films. They only use one camera and one lens, right? And it's a matter of just knowing exactly where to put it, and it makes everything a little bit less stressful. And especially, I think that helps on the editing process. It's kind of like, well, it's the cameras on Brian. Brian and TJ are doing a dialogue scene, right? You do maybe a master wide. You have one on Brian, and you have one on TJ. So then when you're editing, you know that, oh, well, this is my scene to cut back to for reactions. This is my wide to establish. This is the shot that has Brian's individuals, right? So I don't know if that's really how everyone does it, but I just kind of listened to that and dabbled in short films were some of the first kind of traditional dialogue heavy things that I do. I think for the most part, I do a lot more of interview work, I guess kind of like documentary style. You do interviews with B-roll. And so that's kind of what I was used to. And then it was kind of cool to explore the short film world where you could kind of break a little bit more rules, have a little bit more fun, right? And get the film actors, right? That's the best part.
Nice.
Yeah.
I didn't know those other films just use one camera and one lens.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
astounding. I need to go back and like watch and think about that, which I love learning. It's kind of a bad thing from going from fandom to working, one side of the camera to the other. It's like, oh, this is great. Oh, that's how they did it. Okay, that's still cool. You know what I mean? A certain short actor action star might be standing on an Apple box all day. I'm not going to say who I might think that is. But ladies and gentlemen, the Apple box is just a box. I don't know. I guess that's an older term for it, but to bring somebody like an actor up to the height of an actor.
Yeah, it's still used. Yeah. The most helpful thing, you could sit and eat some lunch on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think our next step is to get, I just did a short film and they had a sound person and they had a person just working the lights. Might have been called a grip. I'm not sure. I get a little lost in the terms. And then PAs and assistants, I think, as we grow, because on those 48-hour films, it's a tight crew and you have to do everything. And so like movies I've done with Matt, full-length features, TJ was there too. He had to make all the decisions. So everyone had to come to him and decide on every little thing. So it took away a little bit. He was able to handle it, but we need to be able to, even as a small film, let everybody do the job that they excel in.
Yeah. And not divide attention. That makes it really, really challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard because I feel like it's something that I always tell people with the film, you call it film industry or just content business nowadays, with all this equipment essentially becoming cheaper to where the buy-in price to get a good camera and to get a good light and good sound equipment is so much cheaper that it makes it a lot more accessible for everybody else, right? Which means that it leads to a lot of people doing run and gun jobs, right? I can do, just show up me, my camera, my backpack, maybe a light, and I can do a cool restaurant video, right? You can just knock it out yourself. And at the same time, though, if you look at all the movies and the documentaries and stuff, it's a team that did a lot of this, right? There's supposed to be someone that handles the lighting. There's supposed to be a DP that handles the camera, the lenses, the director. And a lot of times with those people running around with backpacks, it's dropping the price down a lot to where people are kind of like, well, we can't afford a whole crew. I might as well just hire Jerry here to come with his backpack and he can just make something really cool for me that he's just starting out. And so I feel like it's a lot. Because, I'm 26 years old, so I kind of started out when the era of a lot more solo videographers. And so I think that's something that struggle from going from solo to then expanding to crew members and kind of getting that budget and having enough clients willing to pay that budget to then, pay your bills. I think that's something that's harder to find nowadays, especially with all the strikes and everything like that too. I think those big sets aren't there, so you have to kind of make a lot happen on your own.
Yeah. It certainly made it a lot easier logistically that you had all the kit because, we're talking about it in advance. Okay, who's got a field recorder? Who's got a camera? Who's got a boom? And you came as a full package deal. It just took a lot of weight off for trying to find that stuff. I know we talked about it. Tell us how you got started in filmmaking. I know you started and you've kind of progressed to the point that you're at now. You did a lot of film and sports, right?
Right. Yeah. So
to me, that's a challenge with fast moving stuff.
Yeah, it's true. And I feel like a lot of people are saying, when I was 10 years old, I had like my grandpa's camera. I was not like that. I could care less about it. I had no love or desire for any of it. I did like watching movies growing up. Like my parents, my family were big movie people, right? But it wasn't until my sophomore year of college, I was just working a normal summer job, right? That's at St. Peter's School, moving furniture, actually. And so the reason why I liked it is because you get there at 7, you get off at 3:30. And I played college basketball, so then it would give you enough time to go and train, right? And I was working with the janitors, and I loved them, dude. They're like the best people to work with. Like, we had a great time. And so I always loved working with them because I was like, you could get higher paying jobs, but at the same time, if I like these guys, I'm just going to stick here, right? And so the thing was, from 7 to 3:30, I would make $75 a day, right? So this is 2017 or so. So I think I was making like $9.75 an hour, which nowadays is like laughable, but I think back then, it wasn't as bad, right?
Especially a summer job for college.
That's right. Yeah. And I had done it throughout high school too. So I've been doing this for, 8 years. It was, sophomore year going into college. I was like, okay, so I'll go train with Matthew Binder and Plaideau. He trained professional basketball players, college, high school guys, just basketball player development. There's a guy that was working out before me. His name was Drew Guillory, and he played in Slovakia. He played basketball in Slovakia, right? And so he was like, man, these are some of the best workouts I've ever have gotten. He's telling the trainer, like, you go to Los Angeles and all these guys have cameramen, and that's why they're so big. If you need to get a camera guy, if you had a camera guy, you could expand your business and this could be huge for you. And he's like, dude, if I knew someone, I'd pay him. I just don't know anybody. And I literally had taken like video editing 101, and I kind of had like dabbled in high school, but I didn't want to touch a camera. I did like TV production because it was an easy A in high school. Edited a lot of that. And so then I edited some in college, but man, I wasn't paying attention that much in class. I was mainly focused on basketball, having fun. And so I kind of leveraged myself though. I was like, hey, I could use some extra cash, hey man, I can edit the video for you, but I don't have a camera. He's like, dude, you should use your phone. I'll pay you $50. And I was like, oh, I was making 75 a day for 8 hours. I'll take 50 for 1 hour. That's amazing, So I do it with my phone, and my buddy said, my grandma gave me this for Christmas. So you put it like in your cup holder and it comes out for your GPS to hold your phone. He's like, I figured you can use that. And I was like, okay. So that's what I did. I like stood on the Home Depot bucket. I did a little GPS movement and stuff like that. Just kind of like laughable camera motions and all. And I made a video of him working out to send to his agent and all, and everyone loved it. And he's like, dude, can you come back tomorrow? And I was like, yeah, I can come back tomorrow. Kind of put a bug in it, right? And then I went back to school a week later, and he calls me when I'm on spring break, and I was like, hey, what's up? And he's like, dude, I'm going to the NBA Combine. I just got in with an agency in Houston, and we're to go train, these guys at the Combine. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna have to buy a camera. He said, no, you just use your phone. And I was like, well, I want something better than the phone if I'm going to the Combine so I can stand out. I'm thinking this is going almost into my senior year now, so I need to try to figure out a job, right? I go to B&H and get like an interest-free credit card with no money to my name and buy it, EOS 90D, and I get a little kit lens with it and everything. No idea how to turn it on and use it or anything. So I get out the box, just learn how to use it. And then everything kind of shuts down with COVID. And I was like, oh, this isn't good. The whole world shut down. And, I was like, what am I going to do? But luckily when I moved back home, that gym that he was training those guys in was privately owned. So that one summer he went from training just 2 or 3 pros to now 17 professional athletes. And I'm learning how to use the camera. I'm learning ISO, shutter speed, listening to podcasts on the way, and just becoming more obsessive with it, becoming obsessed with how do I be better? What do the pros use? What do they do? What are their styles? What are their methods, right? How do they edit? So, just kind of getting that education nowadays with all this YouTube knowledge and podcast knowledge that we have now, you can really learn a lot. And then eventually at the end of the summer, I was like, what I should do, even though I'm done school, is I should really go back and use my 5th year of eligibility and then kind of get another major. So my first major was multimedia design, which is more graphic design. And then I went back and got digital production and broadcast. And you're learning a little bit more about cameras, a little bit more about audio, kind of asking a lot more questions in school, telling them, hey, I have a camera, can I use my camera to shoot a sports game or something like that, right? That's just kind of like all those reps though added up. It was something that I was doing as almost like a side hustle throughout those last few years of school, and then kept on applying to sports teams, being like, I'm with the videographer position or photographer, and they're just kind of like, your resume is not there. Like, I don't really, you're filming guys in the gym, it's cool, you're getting a lot of likes online, but there's nothing that we can use here. So then I basically was like, well, I need to create something for myself then. So I basically was saying, okay, well, the athletes are going to be there. If I can essentially convince a business guy or two to do business work for them, and then maybe get involved in New Orleans working on set. If one of those 3 things is down, the other one might be up. All right. So that was my game plan going into it. And, still to this day, it's been almost 3.5 years now. It's pretty much stayed like that. I would say I don't really film as much sports nowadays. It's mainly more of helping out on set or just doing a lot of my own work, but primarily with businesses. In New Orleans, I worked with Elephant Quilt Productions for a while, and they gave me a huge opportunity, man. I was a PA for probably like a year and a half. It was a small production company, like 3 to 5 members. So I feel like I got a lot more reps of wearing a lot of different hats and learning about lighting and book lighting, different techniques, and learning how to work with a crew, right? And so I think those reps were probably the most important out of everything. You can learn a lot on YouTube and all, but once you kind of get a lot of those hands-on experience with guys who are a little more, obviously more experienced than you are, it helps a lot. So I definitely took a lot of that information and try to apply it, kind of like the competitive athlete in all of us. So you just want to get a little bit better every day, right? So you just want to get a little bit better every single day, and then it adds up to now you become experienced, right? And you can kind of handle a lot on your own and try to fit into a role nowadays. But like we talked before, it is hard now with the strikes and everything, and there's not tons of set work. So it's a lot more on what can you do on your own. But it's definitely a fun career. It's a fun job. And like I said, I know I've talked for a while, but it really has been an interesting journey. I feel like not many people kind of start on an iPhone and then come back up to camera, to PA, to camera world, to a lot of twists and turns in it,
Yeah, for sure.
Everyone's story is going to be different. It's never cookie cutter. Doing auditions, everything they tell you is true, but when you break from the norm, that might get you the job.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Kids start out of high school and they start taking acting and their career takes off, or it drops down, they come back. Or I started late in life and boom. So that's fantastic. You've shot a Western, you've shot a mockumentary, commercials, sports. I don't know if you've shot anything else. What's next? What's the goal? Where are you aiming for? What would be a dream?
Man, my dream would probably say, my wife asks me this a lot, is I would love to be a commercial DP. I would love to be a cinematographer for commercials. A lot of people, I think, really want to do movies and all, and I think that'd be amazing too, but it is such a hard world to get into and all. I would say I would really like to be like a DP for commercials. It's a very hard path to get there. it feels like it's something that would be my dream, but there's no map to get there. And most of the commercials in New Orleans area are from out of town DPs. And then you're like, well, how do I get to AC? Or he's out of town, right? Because that's his favorite guy to work with. Someone told me like you can drive like a box truck and eventually work your way up from like third to second. I think it just takes a little bit of luck. At the same time, with that being hard to attain, and I'm trying to get there. I think for right now, I label myself as I'm basically a freelancer, but I also have like a production business, right? Production company, the JSP Productions. And so I'd say just try to kind of continue to do that, right? Continue to work with businesses to tell people stories. I think that's something that can't be replaced by AI. So try to invoke more storytelling, even if it's something like, dude, we want to do a video on our basketball team. Well, can we do like an interview with the coach, and can we get maybe some stage shots to kind of add a little bit more storytelling and try to bring a little bit more production values to the jobs that might not even have the budget for, because then it's going to prove your worth. And I think working with businesses and then doing some documentaries, I think would be something that I'm really interested in. Talking with the guy now, but I just think the documentary world is really interesting, and I feel like that might be a road path that maybe lend yourself in. You do a good documentary, you have a short film experience, maybe your resume looks better for a commercial DP, right? But we'll see where God takes us. Just kind of taking it one day at a time.
Right. Yeah. Well-rounded experience.
Yeah.
That seems to be the key. And that's what you said. You hit on something really big when you said there's no direct path. And I think that's kind of true for everything in the industry. There are some traditional routes for a lot of the different behind the scenes things. I mean, on camera as well, but everybody finds a different way to get there. And it's kind of hard to plan out this career because you never know what twist is going to take you another direction. You might come across somebody and a new opportunity comes up that's completely different than what you were thinking. I've been trying to learn some of the stuff you were talking about with the cameras as well for my side hustle. And I kind of feel like shooting on a phone is like learning how to drive with a stick. If you can get great video with that, with all the little ins and outs without using lenses and special stuff, then by the time you work your way up to cameras, then you have the foundation. And that's what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to learn how to use the camera, all the features on it. And it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is very fun. And I think, what's important is all these cameras nowadays are just like packed with all these features, right? For instance, there might be a camera that's the features are more suited to someone that's doing like on-set role with a lot of people that are working with you, right? That even the little markings and the lenses are for the camera team, right? For the guy that's pulling focus on the right side. And I think for just filmmaking in general, you don't need to know as much about the actual guts of everything, right? To break all the rules, as much as you need to know like what's the story you're telling. And I think a big thing that people overlook is the lens choices, right? The lens choices is what gives a character, and especially the focal lengths, right? Do you want to have a distorted background? Is your thing more of like for instance, The Chosen is a great TV show, right? I don't know if you guys have seen The Chosen. I think it's the largest crowdfunded TV show of all time now, right? It's on Amazon, and this guy loved 70s movies, right? Like, or old school kind of movies where it doesn't have a shallow depth of field, which means that the background's not super blurred. You can just see the sky in the background, right? And so instead of shooting wide open and using the built-in ND filters like these features are cranking today, he prefers to just stop it down to T4 or T8, right? So you can kind of have nothing really blurred. It just looks like I'm actually seeing it's like an old movie, and that becomes your style. And so that's kind of a good example to explain, sometimes the features are there, like the built-in ND. I can go walk outside without a map box and get shallow depth of field, and it can look freaking awesome. But at the same time, you can get creative with it and break the rules a little bit, and then you kind of find your little style. So sometimes the features, it might not all apply to you, but at the same time, you can use it to create your own style, which I think is awesome, especially for people that are starting out too and just learning, because you can just be like, the possibilities are infinite almost. And even with iPhones, with the portrait photo lens, it's kind of like the same thing, right? You could do portrait mode on your phone now, blurs the background, or you could just take a normal photo, whatever you like best. And that's at our fingertips. It's really a cool time to be a part of this. I think it's harder to find like on set stuff and all, but at the same time, it's easier to just create whatever you want to create.
Yeah.
And your choices become part of the storytelling.
Yeah, that's right.
Set design, lenses, like you said. For us, it's the choices we make as actors. Am I going to be a mustache twirling villain or a grounded villain like somebody you might meet in real life who just happens to kill people? What effect is that? Comedy versus all those things. It's always story. AI will never get that right. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
It'll be
Yeah.
bland and it'll be, I will tell a movie. It's that human element of storytelling, but I find that fascinating. Just never thought about it from a lens point or from a technical point like that.
Yeah, no, it's true, man. And like you said, it
Yeah.
comes with acting too, and that's what makes good acting beats all good camera settings, right? You know, if it's great acting, it's great acting. So it's pretty cool to hear you guys side of
right.
everything too. Yeah.
It's like we're all working towards the same goal.
And I want to ask you guys. So are you guys, trying to work in a certain, I'd rather work in comedies or I'd rather work in drama or reality, or are you kind of more open to whatever role kind of comes about? I'm always curious, like with actors, because, you see sometimes Leonardo DiCaprio do multiple different roles, right? I don't know, but then you see some guys where it's like, I only do comedies, or for instance, I only do sci-fi stuff. Like there's a lot of people that their whole career, if you look at their filmography, is literally just like sci-fi work.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people do, just like you were saying, your style with filming, body work ends up being a style for some people. They only do certain things. There are some actors that only do commercials. Commercials pay really well. You don't see them doing a lot of film or TV. For me, I think I'm more geared toward drama, darker roles, the bad guy, the mean guy. But I have done some comedy as well. And I mean, I like doing both.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I don't think I'm as funny as Brian. Brian's got more of a lighthearted personality, and it's easier to see him in that role. I think that's probably what threw people off with me in the 48 is people aren't used to seeing me do the lighter stuff. But I do enjoy comedy a lot. I don't think there's anything so far that I've done that I didn't like. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah. What about you, Brian?
I love doing it all. I really love the monster makeup, like being Death. Everyone knows me as a nice guy. I think I am. Try to be comedic, genial. But I've played like 4 bad guys in the past 3 months. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially you get the twist. Like, hey, he's a nice guy. What do you mean he killed him? So that's fun. And we're at the point in our career we can't be too choosy.
Right.
We can kind of choose what we submit to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As long as the script was good, I'm there. Money's okay. It's one way to look at it, but I can't think of anything that maybe like if I was trying to be Rambo, like a big action star, I was like, I can't do that.
Right.
So, that's too much for me.
But no, it's interesting though, because it's kind of like whenever you're starting out, it feels like you want to take almost everything that comes your way, right? Because you're just trying to get experience.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like that too. It's the same boat,
Yeah. My comedy is big and broad, and I like being goofy. I like dad jokes, even, I'm not a dad. But when I can get a grounded role, when it's quiet and you can just express the emotions, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's what acting is all about. So when you can hit that mark, because there are days you try and you just don't feel it.
Yeah.
When you can relax and just get into it. It's a great feeling. And then I told y'all about this movie this past weekend without going into any details, because don't know if it'll be released by the time this comes out. I did a scene. He's a bad guy. Got it in one. I'm going to break my own arm, pat myself on the back. It was really good. We did a take 2 for just in case, for coverage. And they go, cut. And a crewman goes, how'd it get creepier? I did better than I did on the first take, which I thought was great. That's phenomenal, especially when you look back to your first classes and you're nervous and you want to be an actor and you're fidgety and everything's wrong. So when you hit that stride, when you hit that moment, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So Boots, what's something that's unique to you? You might have heard other cameramen and DPs talk about certain things that everyone knows, every DP knows. Hit our listeners with something that's just you.
Yeah, man. Something that's unique to me is I just feel like the journey has been really unique. And I know everyone else kind of starts off with different journeys, but I feel like a lot of these people nowadays that are, DPs of short films or something like that, a lot of them went to film school. A lot of them worked on student films and they kind of got their experience that way. Whereas I think it's not just me, it's a whole pack of us, but there's a lot of these guys that essentially learn from being online or learn from being in just normal school, right? It's kind of like a generation of videographers and editors that are just so talented, but they've not taken the traditional like DP route to things, right? They're almost just making it happen on their own with a camera and lens from B&H Photo, and they're just getting super creative. And I think that's also something that not a lot of people talk about. It's becoming not as much of like, oh, this guy can fit in this role. He could be a great gaffer, a great grip. And a lot of times it's just kind of like we can call, Jeffrey or something. He can come and make this video awesome. Maybe he brings another guy, almost kind of like a photographer where you're like doing a second shooter for video and like 2-man crew just knocks this whole thing out. And so I just think that the roles of all of the grip and the gaff, which I think is supposed to be, right? I think we're supposed to be doing what we are great at, but a lot of times there are these, group of us that are just so, we wear so many different hats. They say it kind of like a, jack of all trades, but master of none. And so that's the one thing that's kind of hard that no one really talks about either, is that although that is great, and I think that's the future, right? Is guys making it happen on their own. But at the same time, when it comes down to like, fitting into a role, right? Like I want to be a DP. Well, look at your portfolio. You're doing everything on your own, but at the same time, like you had DP experience of you just being one, or do we just hire you because of the products that your business puts out looks really good? And can you operate ARRI Alexa, right? Because although you have all this great portfolio work, you might have done this on a Sony that you got online, but do you know how to work with a gaffer and operate different kind of cameras? I remember when I was just kind of like PAing, I talked about with Elephant Quote, they asked me to set the cameras. I never worked with Sony. I film all the time, but I just don't film with this camera. Well, you're expected to know like this camera needs to, this is the base ISO. This is what we need to set up. This is how you meter exposure. I just think that the landscape of everything is so unique. And I think that me starting from sports and all is something that's different. I think a lot of guys don't start with that. They start with passion projects and all. So I think that's something that'll make me a little unique, and that I've pretty much done a lot. I feel like a lot of people are more niche down, and that's kind of like my fall. I'm not doing good enough job at just like niching down. He says like a Western. I've done weddings. I've done Westerns. I've done, a lot of mockumentary. They're like 9 or 10 mockumentary things. And I've done business, corporate things, mini documentaries, a lot of highlight mixes. So I feel like I don't do a good job of niching down. I've kind of done a little bit of everything.
That's good though.
Yeah.
That's good to build that resume up.
Yeah. It gives you a cool perspective.
Yeah, you can't niche down if you don't have the opportunity.
That's right.
So if we were, let's say, in Arizona, they'd probably film a lot of Westerns there just because of what it is. They may have more chance to keep doing the same thing. So your strength, being diversified, is your weakness because you're not specific. And it would be the reverse. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's coming.
Yeah, no, and it's kind of crazy because they start off in sports, right? I want to be a sports specialist. This is what I love to do. I'm passionate about it, love it. But then you're like, think of it like this. The NFL hires salary guys. College sports has students that do it for free. And then they also have 1 or 2 salary guys, right? You have your high school sports, or maybe you're working for like a trainer or a gym. But besides those avenues, what are you going to do with sports if everyone's taken up with salary positions, some of the salaries are not very appealing. It might be $40,000 a year to come film for these guys. And you're like, okay, well, I might be able to make that on my own if I just freelance rather than just try to chain myself up and work for them. Obviously, every opportunity is different, right? But it's a crazy field, man. And I feel like it's changing so much. And I used to get paid to do IGTV videos, and then it was like 59-second mixes, and then it was YouTube stuff, and then TikTok came out and it changed the game with the reels, and then how many vertical stuff can we get with this branding video that you want to do? So I think it just changes a lot, and that this is only in the span of 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
How many other businesses and fields change so much in 1 to 2 years? It's crazy how fast this is progressing and how different avenues are being opened up. Like you said, TJ, I mean, the future might be filming on iPhones. There's videos like the Apple, just like shot on iPhone commercials that they have nowadays. This looks amazing. It looks unbelievable.
Yeah. I was actually going to bring that up.
Yeah.
I was going to mention that, but you brought it up. That's a great point. The filmed on the iPhones on the Apple commercials are just incredible. I would say lighting is very, very important.
Yeah.
When it comes to that.
Yeah. And that's something that's changed so much too, man. It used to be tungsten fixtures, right? That'd get so hot you have to get gloves on. And then LED lights came out and they were kind of crappy and make everyone's skin look weird. And, you can get fired for that. You have your actor come out of makeup and then they're green skin. It was just like the bad LED lights, not making it look good. And then they're like, well, you're the DP, you got to make it look good. But nowadays, the amount of power that you can get for a price that you pay with aperture and small rig, and they have like 4-foot tubes that can change different colors, light tubes, and the quality of LED has gotten so much better. It's just crazy. Like the NFL sidelines, if you ever watch them, they have Astra 6X, just like a normal light panel, right? Like a 4x4. You just slap a V-mount battery on it. You don't need to plug it into anything. You do little interviews at a sideline, right. Power button, knob going, and it looks great. And you're like, wow, it's just crazy how the simplicity of everything and the quality of fixtures, whereas 20 years ago, you had to plug in a whole like tungsten fixture and make sure you don't blow someone's outlet out. And it's going to get so hot afterwards, and you can't dim it down unless you get a dimmer. But nowadays, you can get a Bluetooth app in your phone and just wheel it down.
Yep.
It's getting easier to light things now too.
That's right.
You're saying, what can you do with your sports filmmaking knowledge. Make a sports movie. We
Yeah.
need a full contact checkers movie. And you're the guy to do it.
That would be fun.
I'm kind of partial to tackle basketball, but that's just me.
What can we do with croquet? I don't want to ask about cornholing. So, different subject. I keep seeing advertisements or from on Actors Access, it's vertical filmmaking. So, like you were talking, it's for the phone, but they're starting to expand content. Maybe not as short as, tiny webisodes. Maybe even TikTok. I don't know how short they go. Have you heard about that? Have you thought about that? Are you interested in going in that?
I'm definitely not interested in it at all. I don't like vertical filmmaking, but I don't own TikTok and I don't like Reels. My wife does. I think it's more of a user-generated content, almost like with your phone. But you said, Brian, Blackmagic, for instance, came out with this new camera. It's called the Pixis, right? And they got the screen. So if you put the camera up, the screen is technically on the side of the camera, right? Because everyone's like, who would want the side of the camera? Well, they put rigging ports everywhere. So essentially you just turn the camera vertical and you have it on a vertical tripod and then your screen's right there. And you could have a vertical 6K camera for $3,000. Canon C400 just came out. You could also turn it sideways with the rig, screw it in. You have a vertical camera. You can flip the screen up. And so, camera companies are making it to where you can film vertical content easily. And tripods have always been the one where you can rotate the tripod and make it vertical. But now with the cameras being able to rig vertical, and I have the old Blackmagic, the 6K Pro. If I turn mine sideways, the settings will change. So it's all forward. So then you can do it like that, vertical filmmaking. Man, it's crazy because those will get more views and get more attention than something that's filmed horizontally. And then, unless you have like a big name actor or someone that's in it, for the most part, these reels will outperform the nicer content. Now, which one has a longer shelf life, can be more value to your business, that's something that's different. But it's something to be said that, it's definitely the future. And pretty much every job that I do nowadays, people want reels out of it. So it's kind of like I have to accept it. For a while there, I was like, I don't do social media work. I only want to do stuff for your website, YouTube. I quickly was like, this is a terrible game plan. It's like social media is exploding, so it's the future.
Yeah, it is. And there's a lot of plugins now that help with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking off camera before we started about game streaming and OBS, and there are other softwares too that you use to screen record when you're game streaming. They have plugins available now where it'll pull it out and give you vertical clips at the same time that you're recording your regular standard.
Yeah.
It's all about creating content and churning out product.
Yeah. It's turning us into machines, unfortunately.
It is. AI helps a little bit.
Yeah, I know, right?
Not the AI that takes us over and pretends to be us, but as far as editing goes.
Right. It's fun though. I mean, I think it's, like I said, it's more accessible. So you get to do more, you get to work more. It's the little nuances, but at the same time, like no one's going to have a job that's just everything's 100% perfect all the time.
Yeah.
Even people think, oh, these professional athletes, like they're so happy. It's like most professional athletes are very unhappy with their situation.
Yeah.
Either they're not playing enough or they want another contract. They need new money.
Physical pain.
They don't feel like, physical pain. They don't like the coach. They don't like the situation. And then they go to a new one and they realize they got the same problem. It's kind of like we're not meant for this world almost. It's just like, it's hard to be 100% satisfied with everything that's going on.
Yeah. You can't. You've got to find your joys, deal with the problems, plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I do love gear. I know a lot of people are like, oh no, like, you can't, you're a gearhead and all this stuff. But I do find it interesting that a lot of these cool companies, and I do the DZO Films, like a China, I think they're based out of China. They make these lenses, and anamorphic lenses used to be something that's like $40,000, 50, Panavision anamorphic lenses were like crazy expensive. And nowadays, or Belazar, for instance, is another one. You can get 3 anamorphic lenses for like $2,000, I think. And they're like good anamorphic lenses. And then you could get the DZO. They have a bunch that are probably under $2,000 per anamorphic lens. And so there's like cool things like that are happening. They have this one DZO R-less Prime. It's like a 1.4 Cinema Prime. They compared it to like the Zeiss $20,000 one. It's not that much of a difference. I'm sure if you were using it in a real setting, there might be a little bit, but man, the image quality of some of these things it's fun. It's exciting that you can essentially get these things at cheaper prices.
What's your main lens that you're running right now on your Red?
Mainly just kind of Sigma primes, right? Like photo lenses for most jobs. I don't ever use autofocus. I usually manually pull everything. But I have like the 18-35, the 70-200. I do have a Vespid 40 that I like to do for, maybe some pepper in the sauce. But at the same time, I do like using lens rentals a lot. Like I feel like if I'm going to rent something for like, a short film or maybe even want to elevate a look of a project, I'd rather just rent something instead of pay the big bucks, and then kind of have the Sigma lenses and maybe you could put up a dream filter on it or something to give it a little different look for something that's cheaper. But, to own some of these, for my financial state now, my wife would not be happy.
Right.
But I would love to.
I'm running a Sigma lens on this, and it's a prime lens, but it's still great quality, and it's not expensive, compared to stuff that's available.
Yeah, they use the same glass in their stills lenses that they do in their cine lenses. So you think of it like, oh, these cine lenses are $5,000. Well, it's actually the same glass in the one that's like $700, and you're like, oh.
Is it Zeiss glass or is it somebody else that's making it?
That I don't know. I think it's Sigma that makes it, but I don't know if it's, I don't think Zeiss
gotcha.
makes it. Yeah.
I have a webcam and a microphone.
That's right.
I love that TJ has finally got someone who can talk the minutia and gear.
Tech stuff.
Yeah, tech stuff.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm over here. Well, that's awesome.
It's cool because it helps you get the unique look, right? I think that's what we're all kind of after as aspiring DPs and all, is how can I get a unique look without maybe having to get a super fancy Alexa camera, right? You want to try to find ways that you can make yourself stand out, whether that's lighting methods, whether that's lenses or filters.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, how can you make your own sauce, right?
I worked on a movie, Wheel of Heaven. It should be coming out soon. And he used a Game Boy camera to catch some footage just to drop into something weird. You know what I mean? It just clicked. Like I knew it. Oh, that's cool. But listening to you talk gave it a whole new level of appreciation for me. So get weird, folks.
I know. I love like the reason why I said like commercials is because like there is some moments where they'll maybe use like GoPros or like Game Boy cameras, almost like little things, and they'll rig it to the camera. So maybe if he opens the fridge and pulls the milk out of the fridge, the camera's like tracking with him. Right. So like sometimes building that creative rig with that kind of stuff, I find that stuff really interesting,
Leave the camera on the door, and as he opens it up, it stops on his face and he looks down at the milk or something,
Yeah.
No one's thought of that,
That's right. Like if you ever seen Bullet Train, they do a lot of cool stuff with like the water bottle scene in Bullet Train.
Yeah.
And that was a movie where I was like, this is like, I love those cool ideas for those shots, man. It's sick.
Nice.
Cool. Then we just got to get you a boot camera and the circle will come complete.
That's right.
Boots, it's been a blast having you on. Do you have any social media you want to share with folks?
But yeah, you can follow me at JSPProductions_ and then www.jspproductions.org is some of my work that you can see. And I'd say that the best is yet to come.
Yep.
Everyone asks me like, what's your favorite project? It's like the next one.
The next one. Yeah, that's a good answer.
The next one that you, the viewer, will hire him to do. And he'll hire us.
That's right.
It's the circle of life.
You guys are the best, man. I'm happy to come on anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks,
we
man.
love
We
having
appreciate you.